Some Iowans say the governor's trip to the southern border, where she focused on security, missed the most important factor: the suffering people desperately looking for help in the U.S. An Iowa woman who fled attacks in her home country years ago shares what she hopes you'll remember when you see these families waiting at the border. And an organization's leader explains why she fears too many Iowans simply do not care. And in the Insider's Quick Six, just how big a deal it was when Iowa Republicans gained yet another seat in the State House.
From your local election headquarters, this is the Insiders with Dave Price.
What you think of first when you see these images may illustrate how you believe our country's leaders should react to the masses of migrants gathering at the southern border. Governor Kim Reynolds is focused on the need to better secure the border and says people crossing the border commit crimes, bring drugs, traffic other people, spread COVID-19, and overwhelm the country's capacity to handle them. But our guests this week say that is such a small minority of these people. Most of them, they say, are fleeing extreme poverty, government tyranny, natural disasters, and war. And that includes one woman who fled bombings in South Sudan with her family when she was just 30 years ago.
My dad is a businessman, have a lot of wealth, so I never heard about war for some reason at age of 9. For some reason, I don't know, I never heard.
You were shielded from it.
Yes, when the war started, they started bombing the I think it was like 23 miles away. But to me as a child, it freaked me out. I felt like it was just next door. So we ran, and my father went another side because he's a military before, because the war in South Sudan has been there for so many years before even my dad was born. So he joined the military, I think, when he was 17 years old. So at that time, 83, he was like almost late 50s. So they ran different way, even though he was a civil man, but he knew he needed to help. And we went another side, so we fled as, I don't know how you call it, refugee or just fleeing for the safety, because they was killing us with whatever you have on, and it was evening. So we didn't even have shoes. We did not even get anything on us, so we just ran. And my uncle, the same thing.
Just you and your uncle at that point? And
my mom and everybody. So they kill people, of course. We heard, I didn't see. My mom was very overprotected. And she was telling us, oh, no. It's just a big party. You know, when they do party, they shoot guns. And my oldest brother, they knew. I thought it was a party. I like, we are going with no shoes. What kind of party is that? So to keep it short, my uncle asked for asylum because he's a politician, he's a professional. He taught in Indiana, Bloomington, because he was here in 1964. So you have to go to a third country to ask for an asylum, because if you're still in the country, they will find you and kill you.
So you have to get out.
Yes, you have to get out. So we saw the suffering. Like, you don't have nothing, you don't know what to eat, what to spend. So you have to beg, give me food, wash my clothes, then I can give you something for your kids. And even, yeah, we suffer through those things. So it's a very traumatic, and it's a hard thing. I remember very well, even though I was a kid, but I remember those days that I wish I can take away.
Jody, talk about asylum, because that's a complicated process, right? Mm-hmm. And we've heard more about it perhaps recently, but it's something that we've dealt with almost forever here. What is the misunderstood part about asylum?
So we hear a lot of terms used interchangeably, like refugee, asylum. Asylum seekers are people who fear returning to their country of origin because they suffered some sort of persecution there, or they fear returning because they think they would suffer some sort of persecution there. And in our country, just as around the world, people have a right to seek asylum. That is something that's not granted to you prior to your arrival. People sometimes show up at our border seeking asylum. Sometimes people are already inside the United States and they request asylum. What that looks like has changed significantly, especially at the southern border over the past few years.
And the reasons for it.
Right. I mean, it's true that asylum has to be granted asylum, to win an asylum case, to be approved for asylum in the U.S., it has to be based on that fear of persecution, based on your race, religion, nationality, membership in a particular social group, or your political opinion. And it's actually sometimes really hard. Those are some very narrowly defined categories. And so even if you're fleeing something, you don't necessarily fall neatly into one of those categories. It's very difficult to obtain asylum in the U.S.
So like we saw with Haiti, 12 to 15,000 who were underneath that bridge there on the southern border. Mm-hmm. The weather, obviously there were other factors here, but the weather was the driver here, right? That earthquake. So can you get asylum because climate change or earthquake, calamity back home like that?
So based on just natural disasters themselves, that's probably not going to be a basis for an asylum claim. But I think that just goes to show how complicated things are for people who show up at our borders, and not just at our southern border, right? It could happen at our northern borders too, or any port of entry. There are people who are in fact fleeing something and do need to seek asylum, but we also know that people are seeking refuge from natural disasters. This is, Haiti recently had that second earthquake. They've never rebounded from the previous earthquake a decade ago. We know people are seeking relief from extreme poverty. There are multiple factors multiple push and pull factors that cause people to want to seek relief. And in terms of asylum seekers, people seeking protection in our country, people have the right to seek asylum. Our own federal immigration law cites that fact. It has a citation that says people have a right to seek asylum, regardless if it's at a port of entry or between ports of entry. And I think another piece of that that's really misunderstood is that just because you show up at our border seeking asylum, it doesn't mean you've been granted asylum. You might be allowed to enter the United States, but even if you enter the United States, you are placed in removal proceedings, that deportation proceedings, and you still have to essentially fight your case and try to win your asylum case. And immigration courts are so backlogged that it might take several years to get through the whole process. But in the end, if you don't win your asylum case, you're going to likely be ordered deported from the United States back to that country from which you were fleeing. So I think it's very misunderstood, the process of asylum. Who is at the border seeking asylum? How do you do it? What does that look like once you're in the country? I don't ever hear any talk about that. It's just a lot of talk about what's happening at the border, but not really what happens afterward.
One of the things the governor talked about is that when they were in their meeting down there, that about the backlog that you just mentioned here, and that if it takes a year or 2 years to get through there to get to the point of your hearing, that the country has lost track of people over that time. Is that a legitimate concern?
There are, I'd have to look up facts, but I know that, I can't pull the fact right now, I'd have to look it up, but it's reported, I believe, that people who are seeking asylum have a very high attendance rate, you could say, in terms of reporting to immigration courts, showing up at immigration courts. People want to win their cases. They are showing up. Sometimes if people don't show up, it's because they are moving from place to place. You show up, maybe you're admitted to the U.S. while you fight for your asylum case, but you don't have access to resources. You're not granted work authorization right away. So people continue to be on the move, trying to figure out where to move. And if you don't notify immigration courts of your change of address, you're not going to get a notice of when your next hearing is, or maybe that hearings get canceled or changed sometimes. What has been happening in the last few years at the border, it changes constantly. And we see this because we have people who come to Iowa to stay with friends or family here, and then they come to us. They request appointments with us to go through their options. What are their immigration options, if any? Do they qualify for asylum? And so we see the papers that they've been given at the border, and it does change constantly. But sometimes if sometimes people are detained, they're put into detention centers, which makes it harder to try and figure out how to find an attorney to assist you with your asylum case, if you can even afford to hire somebody to assist you with your asylum case, if that's what you're here for. Sometimes people are released with ankle monitors on, and they travel to other parts of the U.S. with those ankle monitors on, and so they're tracked that way. Most individuals have to report to ICE on a regular basis, and whatever community they go to stay in, if they're not in detention, if they've been released, even if they've got an ankle monitor on, generally speaking, they are required to show up at ICE check-ins regularly.
Border Patrol has been encountering more than 200,000 migrants per month at the border. So what should happen to those people? We'll talk about that next.